Thank you. So I'm really excited here to talk today because I think it's a really fun place for us to be. So if you've been in sales enablement or in this side of the field for a certain amount of time, then you know one thing that's fairly certain. Every experience, every new role you take, it's different from the last. There's not a very prescriptive or set role. So I think for us being in sales enablement, it's a really exciting time because we have a great opportunity ahead of us. And what the business realizes is we become more and more important as we start to shape up what we become. So kind of really the purpose today is we've had a lot of sessions yesterday and today that provided very prescriptive insights, tips, and ways to build out your programs or launch a specific program. Here I wanted to take a step back a little bit. And the goal is really to inspire and empower each and every one of you to kind of rethink what it means to have a sales enablement function or a role in your business and the role that you play in your organization. So, and that's why the title here is Sales Performance, which is focused on transforming an entire organization to sell more better. So, a lot of times when we get brought into this role, usually the main problem that we look to solve is our GTM teams are looking for the right tools, resources, and trainings to be successful. And then it's our job to solve for that. Does that sound familiar when we go into a role, right? Then when we start entering and start talking to all the stakeholders, then we hear from marketing, and marketing really asks, and their request is, hey, do we have really qualified leads? Are we creating the right content? Are we aligning better with sales or not? And then we realize we have this other problem within the organization that they're asking us to solve for, which is getting that alignment between what marketing's building and what sales is actually using. How many of us that came across our table? So we think, okay, great, this is kind of similar, we can put all this together. And then we hear from our customers. And our customers, especially customers that either really love us or those that have really lost us, usually will tell us, hey, I want partners that listen and understand my problem. I want to make sure I partner with someone that has the right products and services and can guide me to success. So then we understand, hey, what our customers are looking for. We want to build something that helps from marketing and sales to meet our actual customers' needs so that our business can flourish, right? And then how many of us have seen that? And then we say, okay, now I have another point of view. And then we start talking to other teams. And then the exec and the board, maybe it comes down from your CRO or your VP of sales, they say, hey, our goal in our stage of business is really to grow by 2x. And ultimately, there's this whole TAM, total addressable market, that we're trying to capture. And this is why we need sales enablement, is to help scale our business as we hire massively and grow and take advantage of this. Have we came across that one before? So we're like, okay, now I got a few problems and I got something that comes from the board. And then we talk to the product engineering team and they're figuring out, okay, how do we innovate on our next, whether it's a new capability, a feature or a function, or even that next great innovation that the engineering team is building. And then they ask, hey, I need your guys' help to figure out, are we building the right products that's really solving our customer's problem? Sales is telling me one thing, customers is telling me another thing. I don't know how to prioritize my products, and I don't think sales fully understands my product. And then we go, okay, well, we have to solve for that too, right? And then from finance and operations, they always ask, hey, is it easy for our customers to buy from us? Can we charge a premium? Are we pricing, are we packaging our products right? Or is there a blocker there, right? And at some way, shape, or form, all of this really falls under what we call sales enablement, which is what I call sales performance. Because ultimately, how do we bring all these questions and all these needs together? Right? So when I look at sales performance and I take a step back, it's really more about not just solving, hey, one need for our end customer, which in most cases it's the sales managers or sales leaders, but it's actually how do we bring the whole company together and all those different pieces to make sure that we're actually selling the right thing and our sales team have the right tools and solutions and skill sets to meet the need of where our company wants to take us. So when I think of what we really play in the broader organization, it's really kind of three things. One, it's leading change management, because if you've been in any company long enough, big, small, startups, hypergrowth, change is inevitable. Sometimes it's this massive transformation. Sometimes it's, hey, we launched a new product or a customer bought this thing and now we want to build a whole go-to-market play around that, right? We want to be able to lead that change management. Second thing is we want to think holistically about the problems we solve. If we chase little things like battle cards or one competitor and then a new competitor comes in, we might not be solving an underlying problem that's there. And third piece is to make sure that we stay with where the execs want us to be. Our job should be building a function that really solves for the vision of the company and where that company wants to go. So just a little bit about me and my background. I am a true San Francisco native, which I'm finding it's more and more rare when I meet people. I was actually born here in San Francisco, grew up in the Bay Area, and I think when you're born and raised here, you get used to a certain weather or just quality of life that as much as I travel and go everywhere else, there's no place like home. So I've always come back home. It's the right weather, the right temperature, the right environment, and the world is here at my fingertips. So I really love San Francisco. I've spent 15 years in sales, leadership, enablement, strategy within the technology world. So I'm one of those that was a sales first, and my background was in enterprise sales at a really large company. Then I became a sales leader, and so on. And I am trapped by Disney as an annual pass holder. So what that means is a word of advice. If you're thinking of a creative gift, you might not want to find that gift that has to keep on giving. So with my significant other, one Christmas, I bought her an annual pass to Disneyland because she loved Disney, so did I. We went out there. The end of the next year, it comes that awkward moment where you get those emails that your pass is expiring. If you cancel it and not renew, then it may seem like there's something wrong with your relationship. So I've been forced to renew it every year. So that's the unfortunate part. So with that said, though, one thing that I love about going into the world of sales enablement and sales performance is, as a sales rep and as a sales leader, and even today, it's very reactive, right? Because they're so focused on hitting a quarterly target, right? Then the next quarter, and so on, right? And every decision and call they make is usually wrapped around, how do we close a deal at the end of the quarter? How do we make our number here? And so on. When you step out into operations or enablement, you get to take that same view of like this maniacal sales execution, but you also get to take that 30,000-foot view and look at the whole business, right? Meaning that, hey, this may solve for this quarter, but there's a problem that's going to linger for every quarter, and really see where the whole sales org is going, where the market is going, and so forth. Right? And I think that's the really exciting thing about being in sales enablement is we get to solve a really big problem. I've been lucky enough to be in several roles where I've been either the first enablement person, or I was hired to transform a company because they were switching a whole direction and they were trying to rebuild. Right? How many of you guys have been the first enablement hire? And when you're the first enablement hire, how many of you guys feel like, hey, there's a good part is I'm the first enablement hire, so I can build something. The bad part is no one else in the company knows what they exactly want, right? So it's like, hey, we hired you because we have this big problem, and we think you're the catch-all and you can solve all of it. And then you can educate us on what your role's supposed to be. So we're going to start with the first piece in terms of leading change management as the business evolves. So if we think of it from a holistic point of view, and if our goal is to actually solve sales for the entire company, right? We want to map our enablement programs and how we build to kind of the same way our company evolves, because different needs change. So when you think about it, one company I was able to join was right when it's kind of reaching that 100 employee mark. And at that time, there's a very different need that the business has, especially even what they expect from enablement, when you get to a later stage or so on, right? So at the startup world, when you have innovators and early adopters as your primary customers, there's less than 100 people, and the real goal is they're still trying to figure out what their product market fit is. Our focus and our goals, not just as a business, but even if I'm an enablement team that's starting there, is really different, because we want to build an environment that says, hey, we have this tribal knowledge, we have people talking, so it's not necessarily the mind share, but it's finding out best practices and start to make that repeatable, right? It's focused maybe more on the voice of the customer to find out what the right product is and create that first pitch. There's a lot more ad hoc and agility that we get to do and be, and so on. When a company starts reaching that second stage of hyper growth, right? And this is usually the fun part. And this is usually the time where someone realizes, hey, you know what? We may need a more formal enablement structure, and we'll start hiring now, right? And two challenges come from this place for us, right? When we come in, it could mean, hey, one, there was a whole lot of stuff that was just randomly built out there and scattered all over that maybe we spend the first 6 months just trying to find everything or rebuild or reshape everything, and that can get pretty messy because whatever was done before was either tribal knowledge, people left, and we have this whole new sales crew and we don't know what to do, right? So there's that added challenge, right? The second thing we have to think about is because we're growing so fast, a lot of stuff is hidden by that success, which is why sometimes, hey, we feel like you can do anything you want and either no one cares, but the business is going to hit its number anyways. But the reality is, at some point, it gets to that next stage, right, where they reach this certain level of critical mass, right, where all of a sudden there's this influx of competitors and so on. The business is still trying to grow, but then profitability or lowering your CAC ratio becomes super important and things like that, right? So the key thing here is when we look at a lot of these stages is our job, and that 30,000 foot view really comes into picture, is that we need to solve for the problems that are immediately at hand, but we're also the ones that have to think about for the sales org and from an execution point of view, what needs to be put in place that no one's prioritizing that sets them up for that next phase, right? Meaning that, hey, if I know that we're growing really fast right now, but competitors are going to be an issue, price is going to be an issue as the product matures more, how do I start finding where those are and building the content and building a program that helps set up our sales for success as the business evolves, right? If I know profitability is going to be important, my initiative should be focused on what are the prioritized programs I focus on that helps lower our cost to acquisition, right? And those might be the more focused around productivity, sales reps, ASPs, and so on, right? So that we're not just hiring more to cover less. So when we really think about how you build your business and how you prioritize it, it's one that constantly iterates. It shouldn't look the same, but we should solve for that current state problem that we got hired to do, but be the ones driving change within the organization on what that next stage looks like and plan ahead for that. And then the last stage, obviously, if you've been in any large companies, it's really about sustainability, but it's also finding that next market that they can drive into. And we play a big part in that because we have the voice of the customer. We hear what the salespeople need from a pain point of view and a challenge, right? Which means we provide a level of thought leadership that we can bring back to the exec board, right? And build out that next go-to-market play that takes them to that next area of either rebirth or else ultimate decline, right? So our job here is to really lead change. Second piece is we want to think holistically about the problems and solutions. Now, it's really interesting because when I think about sales enablement, there was a period of time where most organizations, when they thought of sales enablement, the first thing they come up with is training. Does that sound right? Oh, you guys are the trainers. And maybe at one point that was also true, where it was just sales trainers or generic L&D trainers that moved because they loved the world of sales and they understood how to build a curriculum to develop sales. So it kind of evolved from, hey, my first sales enablement might be just a trainer, right? And that's a really good thing and it solves a problem. But even at that point, companies after that were like, hey, we still have this problem. We may not know exactly what it is, we still have this problem. And then you have this group called product marketers who says, well, I know what the problem is. Now they're trained, but they keep asking us for the right tools. So now we have to create these pitch decks, these collateral and content and documents and so on. But our salespeople aren't using it. So then they go, oh, well, you know what? Let's call this sales enablement, and let's make sure that as a marketer, I'm giving a training on how to use this tool, where to find this content, and so on. So then that next generation of sales enablement became more of a marketing function to enable sales reps to find the right tools and use that tools. And that was really great because then that solved another problem. But then a third problem continues to rise where, hey, what happens with all this when the market changes? What happens when, for example, one company I was in was making this shift going from a commercial state business to wanting to capture the enterprise. And it was a completely new muscle, a completely new market, and there was no tribal knowledge on that. There was no kind of documented plays, and there wasn't any marketing content. And they realized, hey, well, we need sales enablement to help us to get there. But if you're just coming from marketing and training, you may not know either, right? And then they realize, okay, so we need to hire someone with enterprise excellence, or we need to depend on other teams or hire a CRO, right? So when you think about an actual problem, sales isn't just a problem of the sales team or the sales leader. Ultimately, it's a company-wide problem. So when you think about a lot of the big initiatives you're tasked to roll out, whether it's a new sales methodology or something like that, right? It really involves the whole company, and there's usually a bigger problem, right? A lot of times, as a matter of fact, so when I was in my company before the current company, which is that segment I was in, one of the problems that came up in one quarter was, hey, we need to increase more of our conversion rates. Our ops are slowing down because it's reaching to a certain point of critical mass, so we need to start converting more, right? And the first thing is, well, we need enablement to train us on XYZ, right? When you dig a little bit deeper in here, and you go, well, wait a minute. The key growth of the business right now is to get more profitable, which is why our leads are slowing down because we're not spending more money, so we have to convert more of our existing leads. So we know profitability is important, but we know growth is important. So then when we look at what else is happening and what's the real problem that's going on there, right? It could be, hey, the market is changing. There's an increase in competition, right? So people are competing on price or not even considering us because we were too expensive. Product roadmap is unclear or no longer meeting the customer's needs as effectively, right? And our acquisition cost has increased as a result of the two. So then when we go, how do we really solve this problem? Is it really just a training issue? And ultimately, it's not. Training needs to support all these other things. So if I'm building a real solution to this one problem, it might be, okay, let's work with product and figure out what capabilities or differentiators we want to either build on or innovate on first, right? Based on what our customers are telling us. Might need to work with our ops team to find out, are we segmenting to the right customers under this kind of new world that we're in? Then we have to look and evaluate, do we have the right marketing content to meet that new customer segment? And then look at our sales process. Is it set up right to capture an enterprise customer? Then we can also identify, okay, what are the training needs? What are these other needs? And so on. So we really want to solve even some of the most simple problems before they fester into a big one, is we want to solve probably the largest and attach to the largest problem possible, right? One example is, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have been in this situation, where we end up having to compete on price. So sometimes a company starts making this decision where they go, hey, let's lower the price of our product so we can be more competitive to others, right? In this case, my CRO came to me and said, hey, this one competitor is competing with us solely on price. But they're not winning any deals. But since they come up, they become a nuisance. So let's do a training with the reps and build battle cards on how to compete against this competitor, right? And then I asked a couple other people, how many times have we done this before? And usually we've done this many times before. Every new competitor, you have a new battle card and so on. Right? So then I wanted to dig deep and find out what's the real issue in terms of this. If we're not losing any deals, is there an issue? And what's going on? Right? So talking to a few reps, talking to other teams, right? The real problem we found was we weren't articulating the value of our product well enough, right? Our competitor focused on this one area and went into procurement. Meanwhile, for us, we stuck with just the end buyer and never worked our way up to an economic buyer where we had exec sponsorship because we were a technical product. And the second piece is we never articulate the value of what we delivered to that economic buyer. So the real problem was really, yes, there is training there, but was really solving for that in terms of how do we sell up, right? And how do we sell holistically versus building a battle card to defend on price, right? And then that's what we built the training around, the tools around, and so on, right? And that had a long-lasting effect even for the next few competitors that came in our way and kind of blocked us. So the third piece here is solving for the vision. Now, why do sales performance teams, or what do we kind of ultimately build at the end of the day, right? You can say, oh, we build training programs. Oh, we build a tech stack that salespeople can use, and so on. But if you put all that together, what we're really building is a long-term strategy that enables company to realize their vision through sales. So if you are one of those first entrances or you were hired in later to kind of transform that business, first thing I'd always really like to look at is what's the ultimate vision of the company, right? If the company is to really become the next great XYZ or this, I want to make sure that when I build a sales performance team that really is actually going to change the culture of the sales team and maybe even the company, it's something that's aligned to that company vision, right? So that we're servicing that vision and building our sales teams to be able to evangelize that same vision, right? And that helps kind of for sustainability and for prioritization of everything you do. Right? The next piece is our job is to foster company-wide alignment by helping connect the dots in open communication. Your salespeople, especially in enterprise, know this, but we know this as well. Most companies, no matter how small or large they are, they suck at several things. They suck at collaborating. They suck at alignment, especially when it's top-down, right? And they suck at communication. It's just the nature of things because everyone's focused on their specific goals and targets, and they look at their business from very different points of view, right? Enterprise salespeople see this very often, right? We get to be kind of that glue that fosters that communication because we get to talk to those closest to the customer. We get to talk to executives. We get to talk cross-functionally. That one of our kind of underlying jobs is to be that point of alignment. That team that can communicate and bring everyone's initiatives together in one place and connect that dots and have that point of view and share that point of view. And that puts you in a very powerful and influential place. The next thing is, that means in order to do that, we want to map our teams when you're thinking about how do I build out my org or how do I reshape my org, right? To partner with your key customers. Our obvious key customers are leaders in sales, but it's also the leaders in marketing, leaders in operation, leaders in the product team, and leaders on the exec team, right? If you have kind of your hand in those kind of different pockets, it really helps you drive that alignment and solve for the bigger problem, not just a sales-specific problem, right? So the way I look at it is we're ultimately conductors. If you're running a sales enablement, a sales performance team, your job is to play conductor and orchestrate, right? You have your own bag of weapons and tools, right? And those are kind of like driving sales methodology, training, product enablement, sales best practices, all that. But really, you're taking all the points of view from your field marketing, from sales strategies, from the exec team, from product management, from customer success, and you're feeding that into a package that sales can consume. But you're also taking sales and customers' insights back to the business, right? And we get to be that centerpiece that holds all those things together, And that's really what we ultimately want to be. So, just to recap, sales performance, and the reason why I call our team sales performance, and I believe that's where sales enablement is going, is really trying to transform our entire organizations into being able to sell more better, right? As they navigate the sea of the market. And our real jobs is to create and lead change management as the business evolves. We want to think holistically about solving business problems in the lens of salespeople, and we want to be able to scale by solving for that vision. Last thing I want to leave you guys with is one of my favorite quotes comes from Steve Jobs, is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And once you realize that, you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. The reason why I'm excited about sales performance, sales enablement is it's so true in our field that no company has a single definition of what we do, which means that it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It's what you build and what you define it that can shape where our industry and where we sit at the table. Thank you.
All right. Who's got some questions? Great topic. One person, at least. Anybody?
What is your experience with sales enablement in really small startups, right? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the good thing about that is it's very ad hoc, right? It's a small, your sales team, I'm assuming, is 25 less, 50 less?
Even smaller.
Even smaller. So the great thing, what you get to do, especially when we talked about that alignment wheel, is you want to spend a lot of time with product and marketing, right? And really understand what they're doing and bring that to sales, right? You're going to start seeing certain salespeople find and develop the best practices, but you get to spend with everyone else and connect that to sales. Everything is going to be ad hoc. Everything's going to be reactive, and you have to roll quick and move fast. The areas where you can make the biggest impact is kind of building an operating rhythm for sales, even at a small sales team. So you focus on the QBRs, you focus on business reviews where you're bringing product in, and just like how a sales leader at a small company gets to do, I would be actively involved in deals myself.
Thanks.
Okay. A second Seattle friend today who brought the rain this morning.
Hey, thanks, Dixon. That was really, really insightful. One of the things that you touched on a couple of times is that enablement isn't really defined. I think we all know that we don't always know what we're doing. So as you're building an enablement team, what characteristics and experience do you look for a successful enablement leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is really, it depends. It depends on the stage of the business and what that business's ultimate goal is, right? Because if I am a 300-person sales team, the leader I'm looking for is very different versus a 25-person startup. But kind of the core things I look for, if you're looking for kind of one main leader, is someone that has domain experience and credibility. So I actually look for someone with a sales background first that can relate. Because one of the hardest things that you have in enablement is credibility. And those who have come from that space, you have that instant connection with your immediate targets. It's not a must, but I find that is pretty valuable. Mm-hmm.
Can I react to that? I had a team of 10 people who are all salespeople.
Yeah.
And no formal enablement or training background.
Yes.
That's been a fun party too. There are always trade-offs.
Yeah. If you have a team, you're right. You absolutely want to mix, right? The way I usually have my team structured is I break my enablement team into kind of 3 core areas. One that's focused on infrastructure and building that foundation. And that's more of an operations mindset and a project management role. Then I have field performance leaders that are the ones I want from a sales background because they're going to be partnering day to day with the sales leaders. And then I kind of want a general go-to-market leader that gets to pilot and roll out initiatives and is that central source of truth for best practices like your methodology and so on.
Yeah, great. No perfect methodology or approach.
Yep.
It's all in, there's implications and trade-offs with every decision. Any last questions before we move on? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.